Real estate lingo. Why is it so freaking confusing? In every industry, we have our typical jargon that we use, and not realizing that people often don't understand what the heck we're talking about. Don't talk to me about computers. Today, I'm going to talk to you about what is the most used lingo, most used jargon that we in the real estate industry use that is not understood. Join me on the other side. Hey, welcome back. That real estate lingo, that jargon, that terminology that we use every single day can be totally confusing. Listen, don't feel bad about it. I don't understand a word when you speak computerese. Frankly, most realtors don't even know how to pronounce the word. We're realtors, guys, not realtors. I'm speaking to realtors here. So let's talk about what is this jargon so it's in normal, understandable words that you can feel comfortable with using. I am Susan Thetford with Parks Properties here in the Nashville, Tennessee area. I am a native Nashvillian, lifelong realtor, mom of 2 great kids, and my goal here on this channel is to talk about all things Nashville, real estate, and design, my 3 passions. If that's of interest to you, I invite you to subscribe to my channel. Tap that bell so that you don't miss anything. I would do a new video every single week, and I'd hate to have you miss out on anything. And if you or anyone you know is considering buying a home in the near future, then reach out to me for this buyer's guide. This will give you top to bottom what to expect in the home purchase process. Far more than just the lingo, the whole process. The first word we'll talk about is escrow. Now that can mean different things in different states. I'm talking about here in the state of Tennessee. Check with where you're from. But it typically means it's funds that are held by a third party, not the seller, not the buyer, and typically now no longer the buying and selling company either that represents the buyer or seller. Typically here in Nashville now, it's the title company that will hold that money. The money that's held is typically earnest money. Earnest money is the amount of money that is offered in a purchase and sale agreement once the agreement has been agreed upon by all parties. That earnest money is an amount of money held by escrow that will apply to the purchase price when it closes, and is held, it's actually good faith. Just put it that way. It's a good faith thing. So if the sales price is $300,000, earnest money is $500. That's held by an escrow agent, and when the property closes, that $5,000 applies to the purchase price of the $300. Got it? The next term that we're going to speak of is an appraisal. Again, this is a third-party valuation of what the home is worth. It typically happens when there is a mortgage. So let's talk the scenario. The buyer and seller have agreed on a purchase price. The buyer typically will have a loan. The bank actually has more at stake in the purchase of this home than the buyer. The buyer typically is putting down 3, 10, 15, 20%. The bank is offering, the lender is offering 80% or more. So the lender wants to know that if I lend you this money, is the property worth what I'm lending it for, what you're buying it for? So it's a third-party evaluation. It's based on comparable sales within the same area, of similar size, of similar style, of similar updates. It is based on hard numbers of recent sales in the last 6 months, if at all possible, within a 1-mile radius or closer to the subject property. That appraisal is really important, and that may be a part of a contingency. We'll get to that next. So in real estate, we have a lot of acronyms. APR, LTV. What do they mean? LTV is the loan to value ratio. Loan to value, meaning $100,000 home, $80,000 loan, the loan to value is 80%. APR is complicated, put it that way. Its basic explanation is this. You may well go to 3 different lenders to get their, what is the interest rate they'll charge you? What are the loan fees they'll charge you? How much is it going to cost to buy this home? It's far more than simply the interest rate. One lender may offer you a 4% interest rate and charge 1% origination fee. Another one may give you a 4.25%, but charge you a 0.5% origination fee. Where you're really comparing apples and apples, and that's what you must do, is compare the APR on each loan that a lender is offering you to see which might be the best deal for you. Complicated situation, that's where you need to get with a trusted advisor, a trusted lender. And if you're here in the Nashville area, reach out to me. I can give you several that I've worked with for years. The next word that you hear bandied about a lot is appreciation. What does that mean? It is the increase in value of a piece of property since it was originally purchased. So, maybe a home was bought 7 years ago here in Nashville for $300,000. Today you could sell it for $500,000. The appreciation is a percentage of value year over year of what you could purchase it for, of what you could sell it for. Now, that changes from place to place, year to year, and location to location. Often what people really want to know is, what is my equity? To give you what your equity would be. The difference between the sales price and the loan amount the day you close is your equity. Which brings us to another A word, amortization. That is the amount of the original loan that has been decreased over time. Every single month when you pay your monthly payments, a little bit of that loan amount is being chipped away. In the beginning, it's mostly interest that you're paying. But as time goes on, each monthly payment is paying a little bit more of the loan down and a little bit less interest. So amortization means the difference in the loan amount from the beginning to where you currently are in your loan process. Another often misunderstood word is contingency. Every single offer typically has several contingencies in that offer. And again, every single bit of this is negotiable. So that's where you need someone who totally understands this process. But a contingency typically will be maybe subject to the appraisal, contingent upon the appraisal being of value of the purchase price or better. That would be a contingency, meaning that if the home is purchased for $300,000 and it only appraises for $280,000, that contingency, if it's in the contract, potentially gives the buyer the right to back out of the contract. Or it can be negotiated, and there's a lot that can happen. That's the bare essentials. Another contingency that is typical is an inspection contingency. Again, that goes back to the buyer and seller have agreed on a purchase price. Now it's subject to an inspection, such that the buyer pays an inspector to come in and look at all the essential parts of the home, basically, and gives them a full understanding of what to expect. It's like an owner's manual for this home. Based upon that, the buyer may agree, I don't want this house. Or he may say, I want this house if you'll make these repairs. That's a contingency, and it all depends on how it's written in your offer as to what can happen next. A third very typical contingency is simply loan approval. The buyer, hopefully, has been approved by the lender, and based on that information that the lender has, the buyer should be approved for the loan that he's asking for. But the contract is still contingent upon that loan being approved and finalized. If the last minute the buyer maybe loses his job or any number of things can happen, that loan may not be approved. If that's the case, that contingency, if correctly written in the contract and all other things are met, that contingency could potentially allow the buyer to back out of the contract, not have any more liability, and receive his earnest money back. So as you can see, there could be quite a few contingencies that are in a purchase and sale contract. In all probability, everything will go just fine, but those contingencies do offer an out if properly prepared and properly executed. Okay, this is exciting. We're finally at the home stretch. At the closing and possession, again, contracts have to specify every little piece of this, but typically what happens in a closing is the loan, if there is one, is all that paperwork is signed by the buyer. The funds are transferred to the seller. The seller signs off that he's sold the house, he's agreed on all the numbers, and then that sale is recorded. Until that sale is recorded, the buyer can't have possession. Something that often happens here in Tennessee is this. The contract states possession being date of deed. Now, it can be date of deed plus 3 days or 24 hours. That's all negotiable. But if it says date of deed, that doesn't necessarily mean the date of the closing because of this. Possession is not considered done until it's recorded. If the sale or the closing happens to happen at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, it's not going to be funded. The paperwork hadn't transferred, the funding hasn't gone through because banks closed, and it's not been sent to the courthouse for recording as of that date. So that possession may not be able to be until the next day after that recording has happened. If you need to have possession the night of the closing, you better set your time for closing up for 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning. So there you have it, a very brief catalog of our industry jargon, the real estate jargon, the industry lingo that can make you so crazy. If I can help you in any way, please reach out to me. And if you'd like this buyer's guide, and that includes a lot of that lingo, reach out to me. I'm more than happy to send it to you. If you're here in the Nashville area, just have a cup of coffee. Again, like, subscribe to this channel, and if you are looking for some great ideas on more financing kind of information, I think you should check out one of these 2 videos. Have you heard of a recast? That's helping people tremendously. Look forward to talking. Okay, frog. It's time to go.